When will I feel like a software developer? Now, I got this question last night, and it's quite an interesting question, and I know how this student feels. It was a student in a coding bootcamp, and it's interesting because I often tell junior developers to almost eliminate the junior. It's not like we're not saying you're not junior, but in my mind, you're a software developer. You're writing code, you are a software developer. The level is subjective, it's up for grabs in some senses. You could have 2 years of experience and one person deems you a junior or mid-level developer. You could have 2 years of experience and someone will say you're always going to be junior until you've got at least 5 years of experience. It could be you've got 2 years of experience and you're better than everyone else around you with 10 years. So the level really is subjective. So that's why I normally tell people to drop the label, because the only truth is you are a software developer. The rest is what the other person wants to label you. And that's up to you to evidence what you can do and then allow them to make their own mind up about where you are. But I understand the point. When you feel like it, because you're coding, but maybe you don't feel like a software developer yet. And the way I answered this last night was the way I'm going to answer it now. I remember buying a book many years ago on design patterns. It was the most boring book I've ever purchased. And I tried to read it. I thought, nothing's worth this. And it went straight onto a shelf, and there it remained for a good few years. This was a long time ago. And then years later, I was writing a side project, a personal project, and I had this problem in code, and I posted it on a forum. I think this was even before Stack Overflow. So I posted this code on some forum, said I'm struggling to get this to work, and someone came back and said, oh, you're using this design pattern. Really? I'm using a design pattern? That's news to me. So quickly ran down the stairs, grabbed this book off the shelf, dusted it off, and opened the book. Sure enough, there was the answer. I was starting to use this design pattern. That book then became the most influential and most important book in my coding career. Then it started a chain reaction then for me, starting to really dig deeper into coding concepts and why you do things in a certain way. And I think why is the most important. Why do you use these tools? People can explain, what is this in this programming language? What is this concept? And they can explain the dictionary terms of it, but they don't understand why and how you use it. And that's when you really start to understand things. So for me, when I started to feel like a developer is when I started to play around with the language. I was no longer stuck trying to make things work. I was then starting to understand the concepts of how to make things better, more efficient, cleaner, and starting to play with concepts. And I kind of go that this is like learning to drive in many ways. You pass your driving test, you're not really a good driver at that stage. You've learned the basics. Then, to learn to become a racing driver or to learn something else, that's more advanced. Then you're starting to play and break the rules and develop your own style. It's the same with learning how a guitar works or how a piano works. You can learn the basic concepts, but it's only when you start to play with it and start to make your own way and have fun with it, that's when you're really going to start to feel like a software developer. So the advice I gave out last night, it would be the advice again I'll give here. I say don't get too hung up on dry, clean code and all these different concepts about getting everything perfectly correct. Go and write bad code. And when you write bad code, realize it's bad because you created yourself a problem. Now understand why it's bad, and now you'll understand why the solution, why you should code in a certain way, makes sense. You'll understand your why in terms of coding. So go and make as many mistakes as possible, because that's how you learn. And when you get to the end, and then you can start to play with these concepts and know when to apply them, then you'll feel like a software developer.